The holidays are all about sharing with family. Meals, couches, stories, Grandma's secret pecan pie recipe. And now you can also share a cart with Instacart Family Carts. Everyone can add what they want to one group cart from wherever they are. So you don't have to go from room to room to find out who wants cranberry sauce, or whether you should get mini marshmallows for the yams, or collecting votes for sugar cookies versus shortbread. Just share a cart, and then share the meals and the moments. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy free delivery on your first 3 orders. Service fees and terms apply.
Attorney General that should have recused himself because he knew damn well that he had a problem with me.
2/3 of their employees are here in the state of Rhode Island, so I worry about that.
Big stories this year as Hasbro leaving Rhode Island and the Attorney General wraps up the ILO investigation against the governor. Some of the topics for today's Reporters Roundtable.
Holding the powerful accountable from Washington, D.C. to right here in southern New England. This is 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gene Valicenti. Hope your Thanksgiving weekend is going just as you want it to go. Thanks for joining us for this Reporters Roundtable. We're getting toward the end of the year, so we do this periodically. Joining today, to my left, Allison Baloney from The Sunrise Show, political reporter Brian Crandall, and to my right, I-Team reporter Tamara Sikarsik. You've been busy this year. We'll get to some of the stories that you have for us. All right, let's begin. We're all going to each of us came with topics to the table, but I'll begin with the Pallet Village. Echo Village is I call it Boondoggle Village on the radio.
Yeah, right off 95.
Yeah, right off 95 by the Foxy Lady
exactly.
on the exit ramp as you could get down. It was meant for emergency housing for the homeless. It was supposed to open up in March. It's still cold, empty, and dark. We've spent, I think in the end, it's going to be about $4.3 million, maybe $95,000 for each one of those 45 shelters. Who's to blame for this mess? Brian, go ahead. You've been covering it.
Well, I just think, again, it's a lack of foresight that now they can't figure out the code, right? They can't meet the building codes, or that's what the holdup is. But it was the lack of foresight, right? How come this wasn't better planned out from the beginning? And I was actually working on a different story, ironically, about a tiny house, and it's the same thing. It's like they're built, and then the regulations aren't there, or they haven't met the regulations. So one would think that's on the state end to have this grand idea and then not know that the state regulations can't be met with what they have there. They need fire suppression systems, and I think they thought, like, oh, we'll just stick this here and somebody can live in it.
Or we'll figure it out, and they haven't.
Somebody told the governor they do this in other states, and he was under pressure to do something. So he said, great, a bunch of sheds, we'll put them up, and this will solve it for at least 45 people. But then you got the fire marshal involved, Allison. And by the way, I'm going to play what Mayor Smiley has to say about the fire marshal. It's not very complimentary, because he's applying a commercial code as if these were like hotel rooms, and that's holding things up.
Which I don't know if that makes any sense, but service providers are also trying to say as well, now it's time to have a discussion about how we can figure this out in the future. Well, it's a little late for that. Doesn't it seem like that at this point? We are going into winter. We're 20 plus days away. This is the topic every morning on Sunrise that we're talking about is the unhoused, and there's still no solution to it. Also, when it comes to the service end and wraparound services, nobody's talking about the fact that people are going to choose to live in these pallet shelters, and we don't even know if that's indeed going to happen. Who's moving in?
Tammy, there's people who live in tents now, in homeless encampments.
Yeah.
I'd rather be inside a shed, whether it has a fire alarm or not. And by the way, Mayor Smiley said he could put his arms and touch either side. He could punch the window out and open the door.
Yeah,
it's
I think
not exactly
if
a firebox.
If you're inside, you're inside. I think it's better than a tent. But I mean, like both Brian and Allison said at the same time, I think that the state made a big mistake by they let something happen and then they kind of backtrack and they're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't work. Or, you know, it's not up to code. It's not up to...
And I would think on the fire code, my guess is that somebody doesn't want or who's going to get
Nobody
looked at if there is a fire or a problem and something bad happens. Somebody's going to say, or the fire marshal's going to say, well, I told you so. And my guess is that's why they want to apply the stricter code.
I think a lot of people agree the location's kind of odd as well. It's right off of the ramp.
Oh, yeah, very odd.
Well, and again, my guess is because nobody wants it near them, right? Who's going to want that near them, and that's why they tried to find a place where it's not.
It's kind of like glorified tents right in your neighborhood. You wouldn't want
I
that.
thought the whole point was efficiency with all of this, and it's the exact opposite.
I thought the whole point was just to get somebody out of a cold tent for the winter where the snow was going to fall on him. You know, at what point does the taxpayer have a right to say, listen, enough is enough? In other words, I'm giving you a shed. I'm spending $4.3 million, but I have to put a fire alarm in, a fire suppression system, a central monitoring. By the way, all of this is there. At what point do we say the taxpayer is giving you a free home? Let's get the people in there.
Yeah, well, at this point, it might be too far down the road. And the other thing is, too, isn't the thing is because this is for people who may not want to live in a shelter somewhere else, because the state also just bought the old Charles Gate nursing home, right? And the thought is that's a shelter as well. So how many people need the emergency shelter? And
that's
you're
my
right.
question is what's coming first, right?
It would seem Charles Gate is ready to go.
Who's moving in and who are we building for?
Charles Gate has had people there for, I think, over a year now?
Yes, so it would seem that's ready to go.
Yeah.
By the way, you could see they're putting the infrastructure, and there's going to be a permanent bathroom, permanent kitchen.
Outside of each unit, though.
Right. The kitchens, the units have no toilets in them. You have to go to a central toilet. They're wired, but there's no plumbing. And in that central building is a kitchen and a 24-hour person monitoring the whole place.
This all goes back, though, to wraparound services. You need the social services in place to be able to help people get out of homelessness. And the question is that even part of this conversation right now?
That's what Charles Gate does, that I'm not sure if this has even considered this project, where Charles Gate, the whole purpose is they house the people and then they get them to permanent housing.
And you have this circle where, there's a homeless encampment over here. Nobody wants them there, so we kick them out. Now, where do they go? So now you try to come up with a solution, and you say it meets red tape, but it's red tape of the state's own doing, because this is their project.
It wasn't thought through. I think we all agree with that. But let's be fair to the politicians. They were under pressure to do something. You know, the homeless advocates march on the governor, they scream and yell at him and this and that. So we did something.
And I applaud innovation. Yep. We want to be innovative with this, but we haven't thought it through, as you keep saying. It seems to be the common theme.
By the way, $95,000 for a couple of things you slap together? Come on, you could buy it.
I don't think the price tag was that when it started.
And not to get ahead of ourselves, I think we're going to talk more about the housing, but there was a recent report from RIPEC, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, on what the states, all the funding they put in to new housing, how much that costs per unit, and that would be more than most of the houses that most people live in.
Let's go to the bridge. We've all done something on the bridge. Brian, go ahead. I think you've done some of the latest reporting on the bridge. By the way, we're taping on Tuesday. We just got word of the companies involved in possibly winning the bid. When that's all put together, we made the cut. Like there's a list of companies.
And credit to our colleague Gabrielle Cracciello, who does a lot of the reporting on the bridge. But my takeaway is, again, a lack of foresight on the timeline, right? The bridge closed almost a year ago in December. Then in March, the governor comes out and announces, all right, we have to take down the bridge. Here's how much we think it's going to cost, $250, $300 million. And we think we're going to get it done in 2.5 years. So in 2026, by the fall of 2026, it's going to be done. Well, now, because it seems like they wanted to rush that process and they didn't get any bidders in the first place because no company wants to take the penalty if they don't meet the timeline, now they're not going to actually select a bidder until June of 2025. So it seems by trying to push the process along that they then backed it up because they had to redo the bid process.
Well, they wanted to get it done as fast as possible, get this thing behind them. The specs were very aggressive, and nobody bid.
Nobody bid. That was the biggest issue. But it's crazy when you compare it to what happened in Maryland with the bridge collapse there and how they have already, I believe, started that project.
They're going to claim that's a different bridge, different project,
different bridge,
with less environmental
probably
concerns,
more federal funding as well. But at the same time, it makes Rhode Island look really bad that we didn't get any bidders for this bridge. And you do have to wonder if the companies were, I mean, I know the price tag was one of the issues, but if they're nervous to touch the bridge, because with a lot of these projects, once they start, they realize more problems are there, it's going to cost more.
Right.
I'm kind of concerned it's going to turn into the big dig and it's going to blow up.
Well, we also have a
change
change of administration too, so the question is, are we going to still get support on this?
Yeah.
We'll see.
A new administration, yeah.
Very new
in Washington,
administration.
and right, just I think the state is hoping to get as much federal money as they can. And is that going to happen? Because the original price tag is already close to doubled, if not more than that. And one would only assume it's going to go up when they finally get to work in a year.
Jack Reed said we've secured about north of $200 million, I believe, and he said he thinks that's there. They're not going to take that away. But the balance,
it's probably going to be 500, 600 million.
Right, that's the problem, is the gap.
When we come back, there's a lot more to talk about, including whether Hasbro is going to leave Rhode Island altogether.
All right, let's be real. If you're a content creator, blogger, or an entrepreneur just getting started, the last thing you want to do is spend hours building a website. That's where Bluehost comes in. Their AI tools make custom WordPress sites in minutes. No coding, no stressing. You also get built-in marketing and e-commerce tools to grow your business. And with faster loading, you can secure the bag without the lag. It's never been easier to launch your website. Go to Bluehost.com now to get started.
Forget one-size-fits-all diets. With Noom, you get a personalized weight loss plan that's tailored to your lifestyle. Have cravings? Food FOMO? Noom can help you lose weight while still enjoying your favorite foods. Noom's users love the flexible approach, blending psychology and biology to help you lose weight in a way that's sustainable for you. Plus, you can rest assured Noom's approach is grounded in science. They've published more than 30 peer-reviewed scientific articles describing their methods and effectiveness. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com.
Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
They could open it till hell freezes over. Till hell freezes over, and they will not find any level of fraud.
As we say in the report, that the governor plainly interfered in the bidding process.
Well, that was the feud du jour a couple of weeks ago, the governor versus the attorney general. Is this over and behind us now? ILO? By the way, to give the background of this thing, we got to go back to when McKee first took office. It was a bid to get the schools open during COVID. The Attorney General says he favorably wanted to push it to a certain vendor. McKee says, I was within my rights to do that in emergency. Go ahead.
Yeah, 3 years in the making. Yeah. Again, the Attorney General announces the findings of his investigation with the state police that goes back to 2021. Yep. And in the interim there, they took about an 18-month break, which would apparently coincide with when the feds got involved. So, yeah, the Attorney General, I don't think it was a surprise. A lot of this was known at the time. The implication was that the governor got involved. There were emails that he was in communication with the people from ILO Group and one of his education advisors who knew the person from ILO back right when he took office in 2021. And now, the back and forth where the governor protests that he didn't do anything wrong and the Attorney General's out to get him.
Listen, the Attorney General had eyes on maybe the governor's office himself. Now he's talking more Lieutenant Governor. He held this over McKee's head
for a long
time, including over his bid to win the office outright himself.
Right.
So the governor's got a beef too.
Well, that's the governor's argument, and Nerona has basically made no secret about maybe he doesn't favor the governor with his social media
posts.
They don't
like each other.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So the Attorney General will claim his part of the investigation was 18 months because the feds were in there in the middle. And so 18 months, okay, that's okay. But you're right, this has been 3 years. There was already a governor's race, 2 years ago. So a lot of it was hashed out then. Is this going to come up in another 2 years when McKee will apparently run for re-election? He says he's going to have an announcement on that in a couple of months. The governor makes it says, Nerona's out to get me. He should have recused himself because he supported and openly supported Helena Foulkes and wants him out of office. The question I have is, so no attorney general who's not on your political team can do an investigation of you? What if the attorney general's of a different party and is a Republican and you're the Democrat?
All right,
so do you recuse yourself when you're the chief law enforcement officer just because you're not political allies?
Let's be honest brokers here. Let's be fair to McKee. The guy doesn't like me. The guy openly talked to my potential opponent, Helena Foulkes, who was my last opponent. He's thinking of teaming up with her to run for lieutenant governor.
Well, I think at the end of the day, let's all be adults, and work is work, and your personal life, your personal life. Obviously, they don't like each other.
And I asked the governor about this. He was in studio with us live a few days after that press conference, where again he doubled down and used. As the press conference went on, his language got stronger. The hell freezes over was, I think, at least a half hour to 40 minutes into it. But I asked him. So it was the attorney general, but the state police conducted the investigation, and they're the ones who asked the questions. And the state police report states that the governor got involved, and people they interviewed, the director of administration at the time said he finally admitted that the governor influenced it. And one of the members of the bid team said the same thing when the governor found out that the it looked like the contract
Well,
was
the
going to a
optics,
different
right?
company.
And you brought that
Yes.
up, and then he got very angry with you in particular. But yes.
He was on the radio first with me in the morning, and you're right. By the time he got to that afternoon news conference,
He had it.
was fired
I
up.
thought
even
he was
more.
going to go the other way. I thought after he talked to you in the morning, he'd kind of
It was a
scale
fair
back
question.
on the criticism of Nerona. Instead, he has a press conference and then just ramps it up as the hour goes on.
It went a little far, though, when he was talking about whether or not we trust the Attorney General. That's not
Or the state
necessarily
police.
fair.
He didn't
Yeah,
talk
that
to his
was
own
a
state
lot.
police. And I said, you didn't talk to your own state
Right.
police. He didn't trust the state police.
said it was a trap.
They were taking directions from the Attorney General. He said they were being directed by the AG. I didn't want to walk into a trap.
Whether or not this is over, I'm not sure. There's a race, and,
I have a weird feeling it's not over, but-
Common Cause, or the
Yeah.
government watchdog group, they weigh in and they think that what happened there should have been not
Right.
legal, and so should the laws change? Are there ethics complaints that are going to come out of this? Is the governor going to,
They need
complain?
time for that.
We
though.
need an inspector general. I hate to say it, but that
Well,
that
that's
was
always
one
been
of
an
the
ongoing,
problems,
right.
Well, you
know?
would have gotten that with the Constitutional Convention
And that was
voters
shot down.
rejected.
Right.
That's how you.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the
But, I
main
mean,
proposals.
yeah.
That was one of the main
Yeah.
things that the proponents of the
When you look at
Constitution
things like
mentioned.
this, when it's, everybody at the table is already at the table
Yes.
with politics, the inspector general is supposed to be that outside person that can come in, and we don't have that. So that's why things like this become so questionable. Is
I
it
wasn't
because they don't
surprised
like
how it
each
didn't
other,
pass.
or
I knew voters
I
weren't
think
gonna
the
vote for that.
story's over because they're going to hang the bridge story around McKee's neck. And if we
That's a
lose
good point.
Hasbro, they're going to hold that over his head. And those are easier things to understand than a
ILO is a
complicated
very
story
good
about
chance
ILO.
he
So
doesn't
I
run
think
again
ILO is
then?
over.
And again,
I do too.
and ILO was a big deal 2 years ago in the governor's race. So is it really going to be there
That was
again
all they
2
really
years from
had
now?
at that
I
point.
don't
But
see
then
it.
again, if Ashley Kalis runs, she did tweet specifically about ILO, saying that it makes her want to get back into
I think-
the race.
I think
So,
voters
You know,
are
she's
over
out
it.
there with a lot of money. She might jump back
and
in.
would she bring that up?
All right, we did the bridge. Now let's go to Hasbro. They're going to hang that over McKee's head if they leave. Let's go to this
that really his fault?
Pawtucket
Oh,
Citizen
here we
of
go.
the Year last
Okay.
year. Allison Bologna, is Pawtucket going to keep Hasbro?
I would like to say yes, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No.
You?
This is not new this year.
Right.
This rumor's been going around forever, by the way. But the mayor has been fighting so hard, along with the Pawtucket Foundation and others, to really see if they can keep them. The whole notion is you have a 100-year history in this state. Believe in it. We'll do more. We'll give you the apex land. We'll build for you. A lot of the people who live here don't want to move to Boston. Can you stay? So we'll see. But they're up against the 195
All right,
Commission, too.
we're tight on time. I say no. You say no.
I say no.
Brian, what do you say?
I'd say 50-50, but are they just making a play to get a bigger incentive? Who's going to
They
give
have
them
a
the
new
best
CEO.
incentive?
Do you-
Right, he
what-
doesn't
Yeah,
have
I
ties
say
to Rhode
no.
Island.
What do you say?
I say no.
No.
After-
Listen,
yeah.
Providence
What do you
has got
say?
its hand. I said no.
You're right.
To Pawtucket. Not no to Rhode Island. Providence has its hand.
I think no.
And we may get a surprise here somewhere in the offing. You know, there's 39 cities and towns. Not
You think
Providence.
somewhere
And
else?
school
Not just Providence
districts.
and Pawtucket.
Well, could they just move over the border into Massachusetts?
Maybe do a lot of things.
Because again, with the
Yeah.
employees, do those people want to be in Boston with the traffic nightmare? But doesn't Hasbro
Yeah.
claim there's just a bigger talent pool?
And didn't
right?
we
Is that
just
Much
put
bigger
in that
talent
perfect
pool.
train
The CEO
station
went to
for them?
Harvard.
All right,
Yeah,
quick,
there's that too.
quick break. Quick break. We'll be right back. They're all used to taking time cues. We'll be right back.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
You know that feeling when your favorite brand really gets you? Deliver that feeling to your customers every time. Memorable moments like these are key to building your business and your brand. Klaviyo turns your customer data into real-time connections across AI-powered email, SMS, and more, making every moment count, so you can continue to build smarter, more meaningful relationships with your customers. Build smarter digital relationships with your customers and make every moment count with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/BFCM.
Welcome back to Reporters Roundtable. This is In the Round. Go ahead. Topic number one for Tammy so far this year.
All right, let's talk about red light cameras. So I did some digging into some data at red light camera intersections, really across Rhode Island from all of the cities and towns that have them, to see if they're really doing their job in preventing crashes. I found it actually depends on the intersection. Some of them, crashes dropped upwards of 30%. Pawtucket had a lot of good ones, same thing with Central Falls, but in Providence, some of the crashes went up. I found quite a few. East Providence, too, some of the crashes went up. And that might be from drivers slamming on their brakes to make sure they don't get ticketed.
You come up the ramp, it's like you're in East Berlin, the old East Berlin. You have to stop. You're under surveillance, yes.
What's also interesting is we're installing more red light cameras. So Warwick just signed on to it. However, in other parts of the country, they're doing the opposite. They're getting rid of them now.
What a cash cow it is. And they all, oh, it's for safety, it's for this. Come on, it's millions of dollars coming in.
Yeah, many millions. Yeah.
You know there's one right on the corner over here. That's one of the license plate readers, right?
Oh, I know that one.
The flock camera.
Flock camera, yeah.
We know where we are every night, so anyway, it's no big deal. Story number one for you?
We have a new housing secretary, right?
Yes.
Stefan left. How many months did it take? About 10, 11 months, but we have a new housing secretary. I heard on the inside a lot of people from inside the state wanted that job, but the governor went out of state to somebody in Massachusetts. So we'll see. Deborah Goddard, we'll see how that shakes out.
You know,
because affordable housing so big right now.
For most of history, we lived without a housing secretary. Now we have to have a housing secretary.
It's
Is that
what
just
everybody's
another layer
talking
of
about.
bureaucracy, you think?
Some people are saying that, but other people are saying we need some oversight at the same time, especially when we're talking about ADUs and other expansions on affordable housing. So we'll see. I don't know. What do you guys think of somebody out of state versus in-state? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, sometimes it is good to go out of state for a fresh perspective. And as we talked before, there's hundreds of millions of dollars the state has invested or put aside for housing in the past few years. Now, a lot of that is federal money that came with the pandemic relief. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to have somebody specifically overseeing that, because it does seem like a lot of that money hasn't yet been spent.
That's what she's going to be in charge of, right? So we'll see.
Brian, your topic du jour?
Well, one that's been on my plate for a couple of years is Nicholas Aliverian.
Just
keep you got the interview with him.
And that was, oh my gosh, that was 2.5 years ago. And he actually has a plea offer.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's in Utah now, right?
And he is Nicholas Aliverian now.
And he finally admitted, not that long ago in a court hearing in Utah. Now, he's in Utah because he faces rape charges in 2 separate counties there, cases that go back to 2008. That's why he was arrested in Scotland a couple years ago. He was wanted on a warrant in one of those cases. Of course, he faked his death in Rhode Island back in COVID times. It appears that's because he knew the walls were closing in on him on another case out of Ohio, a fraud case. But he has another court hearing in Utah scheduled for this week. Who knows if he'll actually be there or not, but he has a plea offer, it sounds like, on his plate in one of those cases.
He has basically a lifetime worth of court action. He has to come back here at some point for faking his own death, unless we waive those charges.
I don't think he's actually been charged with that.
But at some point, we want a shot at him. So does England.
But
you know, in London, there's a rape
England,
case in England.
Yeah.
I mean,
as of right now, I don't think he has any open cases in Rhode Island.
I don't either.
Yeah, he failed to register as a sex offender. That was. He had apparently already moved overseas back in 2017.
For 4 years?
2.5. Well,
2.5 years.
Again, my predecessor, Parker Gavigan,
started it.
Don't you think making a fraud case for faking your own death and doing all kinds of shenanigans would be easy charges to?
We'll see. Do we want him here or not?
I know. Do we want to bring him back?
When you look at all of what's transpired in the courtrooms in England and in Utah, but again, he recently finally admitted that yes, he's Nicholas Aliverian after claiming for a couple of years his name is Arthur Knight and he's never been to the United States, but he still kept the accent.
I'm so exhausted by this story.
It's exhausting.
Well, another court case I think is Karen Reed.
Of course, we're back to that again. Retrial.
By the way, why? Let me just say this: we've been covering it. It's been a tabloid sensation. Why is this particular alleged murder getting an oversized amount of coverage versus other alleged
the corruption
murders?
within the police department?
I think there's so many layers to it. As you said, I think it started in the town of Canton, where people were blaming other people in town and their relationships, and then it comes out and it played out in the courtroom about what the state police investigators were doing, inappropriate text messages. It got attention from a blogger, Turtle Boy, who then made his own news because they claimed he was interfering with witnesses. But I think it's the conspiracy element to it, where she claims she was framed and that people inside the house where she dropped her boyfriend, a Boston police officer, actually beat him up and killed him. And again, I think people have very strong opinions who are outside observers. Oh, she did it. No, she didn't do it. She's being framed by the state police.
Following.
Yeah, and the state police are catching an awfully bad rap again after they had an overtime scandal before in Massachusetts. Now they have this. It's still happening where they're,
this is
the
bigger than Karen
they've
Reed.
reassigned some of the investigators. They've faced disciplinary action.
Some of them have been let go altogether.
But again,
some of the text messages were alarming to read.
Vile.
I mean, I think, that's definitely.
And now after the mistrial this year, there's supposed to be another trial coming up. It might get pushed back a couple of months, but each side has now brought in more lawyers. And, there was a court hearing this past week as we record about whether or not the prosecutors are going to call at least Karen Reed's dad, and they want to look at their cell phone records.
They want the mom's cell phone
But again,
records.
I think the conspiracy element and the connections to cops and stuff like that is where this really gains traction.
I think that's enough for us on that, because it's like a year's worth of stuff to come with the
There's more
retrials
to
coming
come,
in
yes.
January. I want to talk about the Providence schools. Mayor Smiley and his city are on the hook for $15 million, not the state. The state has the upper hand. By the way, this commissioner reminds us that the city actually started this legal action, and then it backfired on them in the end. The mayor says he's got to raise taxes, maybe cut services. This does not bode well for a mayor who was doing very, very well. Nobody likes to have their taxes raised.
Yeah, nobody wants to have their taxes raised. I mean, let's be honest, the school system is just a mess. This whole state takeover has been a mess. Test scores are not where they should be. We have seen, some progress in the sense that Providence Schools is getting the money that they need, so that would be the one benefit here. But otherwise, you haven't seen a lot of change. You haven't seen what the teachers want, what the students want. Exactly. So
let's play this exchange between. By the way, Mayor Smiley's really mad at the education commissioner, and she fired back at him. He basically said she's impossible to work with, and she said, "I'm impossible. He's the problem. Play it."
Commissioner or her staff is supposed to be providing that oversight, and it's not happening.
The district has been doing what it has to do. It is going to be a hard time for everyone. We understand that. But if you don't invest in the school system, then what do we have?
What do we have? We have a broken system that's shown very little improvement since the report.
And I'm surprised she's still here.
And does the city actually want the schools
And
back
how
right
are
now?
they
We've
gonna
talked
fix it?
about that before.
Right.
And you talk about Mayor Smiley and the education commissioner in kind of going back and forth at each other. One of the things Mayor Smiley said when they reached this court settlement for the city to provide $15 million more over the next 2 years, we said the adults got in the room and figured it out. So I'm wondering, who is he implying wasn't an adult?
Right.
Because he made sure to say the adults got in the room to figure it out.
I am surprised she's still in the state. She was a favorite by Raimondo. I thought she was going to move with Raimondo where Raimondo went to Washington. I'm surprised she's still here.
She just
so
got
was
a
Mayor
new
Smiley. He was
and
her director of
they
administration
do not get
and
along,
chief
and
of
they're
staff.
both Gina picks.
You know what? I'll tell you, we got about 30 seconds left. Let's leave with this. Is Gina Raimondo coming back to run for governor?
I don't think so. That was a report.
I say no.
That was a report that people I talked to who know her just don't think that's going to happen. That was floated.
That was an unnamed source report that she's floating this idea.
Yeah, I say no. I'd be surprised.
Okay.
She's got a lot of options.
She does.
By the way, a lot of reporters said Trump would never be elected president. So on that note, our predictions are worth what they're worth on this Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for being with us. We're grateful for you as viewers, and have a good rest of your weekend.